Hey everybody, today I'm talking about Egizia Shifting Sands. Now this is a 2019 release. I backed it on Kickstarter and recently got my edition. I've got it to the table and I'm here to share my thoughts. So the game is 2 to 4 players. It's a Euro style game where you're trying to get the most victory points. With most games with the Egyptian theme, you are trying to build the pyramids, build obelisks, build statues, that kind of thing. I guess you would call it a worker placement style game. It has elements of area control, a kind of resource conversion. And the game is kind of broken up into pretty distinctive phases. So the first phase is essentially your cleanup phase, your lay out the land. The whole point of the game is there's this Nile River and you are placing boats down them in order to collect cards, to get one-off abilities, to get permanent abilities, collect or use these tiles to increase the strength of your workers, to collect bricks, to collect food, and so on. But the kind of twist on the game is that when you place one of your boats on the Nile, then you can't go back on yourself. So you can jump down to a certain point and collect what you really want, but then you can't go back to collect cards or tiles prior to that. And that is essentially the gist of the game. So when you go down these tiles, you are trying to collect maybe things that give you bricks. You can stop off at the docks, which give you building opportunities in a future phase. You're converting those bricks and the strength of your workers to contribute to building the pyramid, which get you points depending on how many bricks you contribute. And once one of the columns or one of the lines, or rows I should say, of the pyramids is complete, you can score additional points for having the majority. You are communally trying to build the obelisks, which again, you're converting bricks and strength to build the different levels, and as it goes up, the values increase. So you can potentially be giving your opponents opportunities to capitalize on your previous actions. You can build the colonnades, which pretty much have this kind of race mechanism as you build one at a time. From left to right, when you get to a certain point, you can unlock more abilities. And the first person to complete them all gets additional points, almost like a race fashion. You've got the different statues you can build, which get you endgame scoring criteria, and you've got Sphinx cards as well, which again give you endgame scoring criteria, but more of a kind of lucky draw based kind of mechanism. So that's what you're trying to do, really. I like the fact that these different kind of docks that you can stop on, which that you build. There's always less opportunities to go there than the number of players. So if it's a 3-player game, only 2 players could go there. So again, that choice of whether you want to go ahead and secure yourself a place to build something is there. I like the fact that when you go to these tiles and increase your building capacity, you have to think about how much food you're going to feed them, because if you don't have enough food to feed your workers, then you're going to lose points based on another track, because there's a food track and a brick track as well. And basically, the lower you are on the food track, the more points you're going to suffer if you can't feed all your workers. So I like that little twist to it. There's also, obviously, as I said, all the different kind of different statues and stuff which score you points based on how well you do. So it could be maybe if you're up 10 places on the different food and brick tracks, then you get more points. Maybe if you have a certain amount of a type of card, you get more points. A certain amount of, food production, stuff like that. There's a bit of interaction forced into the game through the use of these food cards, because you've got 3 different colours of food cards you can get, which produce your food to feed your workers. You've got your green ones, your yellow ones, and your red ones. And the cool thing about this irrigation ring is that you can manipulate it to suit your needs. So if you have a bunch of green fields, you can maybe move it down so only the green fields will produce, and then other players might really rely on having the yellow foods produce. And obviously, if they're not producing, they're going to potentially lose a lot of points by not being able to feed their workers. So there's a bit of interaction there. Obviously, you've got the interaction based on how far you're going to go down to the river, because you don't want people claiming the cards that you want. So those decisions in the game are really there, because sometimes the card decks are stacked, so you could have a really limited amount of food available at certain times, and you might really need them, so you're going to have to sacrifice a bunch of cards to guarantee that you get what you want. Obviously, you need the strength and the stones themselves in order to actually build things to get points in the first place. And obviously, you can maybe sacrifice that to get more ongoing abilities that can hopefully pay for your or pay for themselves as the game goes on. So that's basically how the game flows. So you've got your, as I said, you've got your placement phase where where you're placing your cards and tiles to set the pace of the Nile. You've got the phase where you're placing your boats. You've got the food production where you feed your workers and potentially lose points. You've got your stone production, and eventually then you've got your building phase where you are contributing your stone and your strength in order to build the pyramids, build the obelisks, build the statues, claim Sphinx cards, and so on. Now, this game is, as I said, it's a re-implementation of the old game with the same name, but without the Shifting Sands tagline. It's a game that was pretty highly sought or spoke of, so I was always intrigued to play it, but I think it was long out of print. I could never get hold of it. So I was really anticipating playing this one. And I did enjoy the game. I think it's a solid game. There's not really much bad I can say about it. The problem with it is that there is also not that much really interesting to sink your teeth in terms of its mechanisms. It's very much a vanilla feeling style board game, or Euro style board game. And maybe if I played this a couple of years ago before I played all these excellent Euro games, then this one would kind of maybe pique my interest a bit more. The problem with it, I just found it very although I said there's no really anything wrong with it, I just found it quite uninteresting and quite, as I said, quite vanilla. The balance of the game is fine. I think there's a lot of different strategies you can take in terms of focusing on the statues, focusing on the pyramid, and stuff like that. I love the fact that the players who's behind from the previous round gets to go first in the next round. That's a nice touch. It plays relatively smoothly. The choices are there depending on how far you want to go down to the river, as I said. Which ones you're going to contribute your bricks to. As you dock on these different areas to contribute to these different artifacts or the different kind of constructions, you've got to be careful about how much you're going to allocate to each one, because as you get down to the bottom, you might run out of bricks and run out of worker strength. So yeah, that's good choices in this game. There absolutely is. It plays in a pretty snappy amount of time, about an hour and a half, which is about right for a game like this. Replayability wise, you're not going to go through all the cards in each game, because there's loads of different, a ton of cards, a ton of Sphinx cards, which give you the endgame bonuses, loads of different powers you can verify the setup and stuff like that. But the problem with it is, as I said, it didn't have that hook for me to go back to and play it at all, really. I feel like I've played it once, I've kind of felt the gist of the game, I know how it flows, how it plays, and there's not really much else I want to explore about it. The interaction, as I said, is good because you're fighting over the cards and stuff. Aesthetically, I think it looks okay. I mean, no real problem with it. I think it just looks a little bit too computer generated in terms of like the way the statues look and stuff. It just doesn't quite sit right for me. I can't really quite put my finger on why, but not overly enamored by the way the game looks. But again, no real complaints at all. Component quality is good, and setup and teardown time, no real issue at all either. So yeah, overall, I can only say that this is a solid game. I can't give it anything else but a good rating. It's just personally, it didn't have that hook for me to keep going back to it. I'm glad I've played it, but as I said, it's not one that's going to be staying in my collection because it just doesn't stand out from amongst the pack. And there are plenty more games that take the same amount of time that I'd rather be playing. So unfortunately, I said, it gets a good verdict for me, but I can't, I'm not going to really recommend it ultimately because I'd recommend so many games before it, if that makes sense. So that concludes my review of Egizia Shifting Sands. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please hit like and subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos too. For everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.